Rested Experience is an add-on, but there's a guide that goes with said add-on that you have to pay for. You buy it on their website. They allow you to download a string that is linked to your BattleNet, and then you import that into the guide, the add-on itself in-game, and it basically shows you step-by-step instructions of how to level a character. It's touted as a speed leveling add-on, but I would say more valuable is its kind of autopilot features. Really, the two go hand in hand. Like if you want a speed level, you need to have as minimal downtime in between steps as humanly possible. And I think that's why they created the add-on in the first place. But after 18 years of World of Warcraft, this is not a new concept. There's always been guides out there, things that you could follow to try to level faster. And this is all derivative of classic World of Warcraft. So these guys capitalized on a big market, something that people probably still look to this day, even though Wrath leveling is so much easier than classic leveling. And I will tell you, I used this add-on for classic and it is absolutely marvelous. The thing I like the most about it is that classic, there's so many different things that you could possibly do to get experience at any one given time, and it takes such a long time that you're never really sure, like, should I do it at this level, when should I go to these zones, how should I get there, etc. And this add-on really simplifies that. Like there'll be quests in some zones that take you to other zones. This is all routed very, very well. And yes, maybe it's not the theoretically fastest, I don't know, but it doesn't really matter to me because it actually feels like it's guiding me through this dance that I never would have been able to come up with in my own head. The way I've always played WoW is just like do one zone until completion and then move on. And that's definitely not how you want to play Classic. They guide you through like when you should do parts of zones and when you should leave it, where you should set your hearth, and where you should take flight paths. And the hearth and the flight path feature are the absolute best features of this add-on and this guide, because not only does it tell you when and where to use the things, but it also automates it for you. It'll automatically set your hearth when you talk to an NPC that's relevant. But the coolest thing is the flight path. If you ever did any type of leveling in Classic, you would know that there's like a million flight paths on the map, and the map starts really small, so you always have to zoom in to pick the one you want, and kind of gets old. I've clicked the wrong one many times in Classic, so it automates all that. That is just the number one reason why I would recommend this add-on. I really don't even care about leveling fast that much. I just want to have a better, more flowy kind of experience, something where I don't feel like I'm kind of getting bogged down by menus or these kind of non-combat decisions. So with all of that in mind, I was like, oh, they're making a Dragonflight add-on. I'm totally interested in that. So the question here is, should you also be interested? And I'm going to give my thoughts, because last week I did a big test of their 10 to 60 version on the Alliance side. I have tested the Horde versions, although not completely in one sitting yet. And currently, as of me recording this, there is no 60 to 70 guide. So that's going to have to get part of the review, because I do think that's kind of ultimately the issue here. You see, the classic guide is one that is something you kind of really do want to have. Like, it's a process to get to level 60 in Classic, and even in probably TBC and Wrath. I've never used those versions of it, but I think the issue that we have here is that there's just way less people working on this, way less of a call for it. Yeah, I don't want to say anything detrimental about the whole thing, but it does feel like it's super rushed and pretty unfinished. So they waited all the way until the second part of the pre-patch to release the 10 to 60 or like 1 to 60 part of it. You can buy these things in chunks. There's like a bunch of different price points. So I just bought like whatever the highest one that gives everything is. There's a lot of things that leveling might now focus on that I'm just not really interested in anymore, I think is the bigger issue too. Like in Classic, there's no heirlooms, or at least in actual Classic, there's no heirlooms, there's no potentially hours spent preparing the character. You just log on and level. And that's how I've always enjoyed it. Just like make a journey out of a character and just get it to max level. I just don't want to interact with that kind of stuff. So that kind of preparation is not interesting to me. Now, the good thing about this guide, though, is it doesn't necessarily require you to do that, but that's what speed leveling, quote unquote, looks like now. So here's where the conversation starts to diverge. In the classic version of the add-on, speed leveling and the autopilot feature are two of the same things. Like they have to be together. But in retail, in Dragonflight, the speed leveling thing and the autopilot thing are completely different, right? Like if you just want to level without your brain really having to do any actual hard work, autopilot can take you anywhere. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter what zones you do. It doesn't matter what character you have. It doesn't matter what preparation you put into that character. It can still be valuable and it could be worth paying for. But if you actually want to level fast, then, the autopilot almost starts like not existing. Like you actually have to think, because we're talking about, using every small optimization you can, because we're talking about cutting down like 6 hours to 3 hours. You know what I mean? Like that's the difference. Whereas in Classic, we're talking about cutting like 2 days of playtime into 1 day of playtime. But all of that said, like I don't really feel like any of that is really that big of a deal to me. The only real concern I have with the add-on is that it's simply just not ready, especially since it's not even like I'm recording this, the level 60 to 71 is still not even out, and we are 3 days away from Dragonflight launch. Now I get it, their stance is that, you know, they want to try to perfect it and make it as good as it can be, but considering, you know, they kind of said that same thing about the 1 to 60 version, and then when I tested it there was a million bugs. I just don't really think that that's a realistic goal. I hope, honestly, I hope it's not like burning these people out. I don't know who's testing this. Yeah, and I think the other problem is, compared to the Classic version, is that there's just a lot more to test in these things, right? Like you have a million different races, a million different combinations, and there's just a million different zones, right? Like in Classic, you can only really level the one way. Like it's just about when and where you do these things, but they have to be done. In Dragonflight, that is the complete opposite, especially with how little experience is actually required. You pretty much only need to do 4 zones out of the entire game, and there's like a lot more than 4, let's put it that way. So the ones they choose are probably the thing that's are the sticking point to me the most, because I will tell you, the Alliance version of this guide is outstanding. I love the original part of the route. It goes through some of my favorite zones, and I couldn't have asked for a better route for that. The problem is I will not do the Alliance DFA zones. I don't really care how fast they are. I just don't have any interest in them. The problem I'm also having now is, because I guess of piracy, they've changed the way their guides work, and now they're like hidden or something. I don't really know how it's working, but in the past you used to download the actual guide and you would be able to physically change things in it if you wanted to. But that is no longer the case. Now it's some like hidden thing that you can't actually interact with. So this kind of really ruins it for me, because I did absolutely fall in love with the first half of the Alliance guide and then stuck doing a zone I'm not interested in, or basically turning off the add-on, which is what I've just come to do. And also, you know, like there's the starting zone guide too, which is really, really good. Like the dwarf starting zone guide in this add-on is outstanding. It's a really, really good version of this. So I'd like to have that in the route, you know, but I just can't because all of that stuff is hidden. But the good thing about the add-on is that you can actually make your own guide, and there are tutorials and stuff on their websites, pretty much just legwork on your part. Like you got to do a ton of typing and a ton of testing to make this work, but the nomenclature is all there on their website. It's you're basically like creating an add-on within the add-on, so they tell you how to do that. Someday I will do this, because there's a horde leveling path that I absolutely adore, and I would love to have the autopilot feature through that, even though again that's not the fastest way. That's certainly not the way they're recommending doing the horde route. So I think like the best thing about this add-on is not necessarily the guide that you pay for, but it's the add-on itself. It is an absolutely amazing add-on, and it's totally free. Like this is something that Blizzard requires. You cannot sell an add-on, so the add-on will always be free. It's just that data that you're paying for. If you want that, you could download the add-on and make your own guide. But I really would like to see them branch out to other people, because, you know, I believe that the people who are making this guide for Dragonflight are reliable people, no doubt, but I know there's a lot of other people out there who are not really that big into the media creation and the whole, like, you know, influencer scene, and they are out there doing things that are really cool for leveling too. I have seen this firsthand. I would love to see this add-on just basically be like a place where people could kind of make their own guide, and, you know, even if it was a different charge, right? Like say I want to pay for this guy's route, I want to pay for that guy's route, they could be smaller separate charges. I think that would be really, really cool, and I think that's probably what they should consider, because like I said, in Classic, you know, you could probably come to some consensus like this is the best way to do it, and there's not really any wiggle room here. There'll be some small variations, but it's all going to be the same overarching route. But in Modern WoW, there's completely, I mean, there's a million iterations of how you can do it. It's like I don't want to do some zones, and if you route those zones in, then I'm not going to pay for that, you know, or I already paid for it, but I'm not going to be interested in using it one way or the other. So yeah, the 1 through 60 route Alliance takes you through basically like the human starting zones, STV, and then it takes you to BFA, and the Horde one currently takes you through Silver Pine, which is looked at as like a really good zone. I've never actually done the zone before. It takes you through like the WAD intro and then a bunch of BFA stuff as well. So I guess that's pretty interesting. I will say like the BFA Horde stuff, there was some really nice little optimizations you can do in there, and I never knew how good some of those were. So I do think the Horde one is better. Like I think it's actually probably faster than the Alliance one, and the Horde one also has Volpira, which is really, really useful for leveling. I can't talk about the actual Dragonflight experience yet, but I will say that if it is a similar quality and everything comes out the way it did, I'll probably like it more, because the problem that I have with the 1 to 60 version expansion is that mostly it just takes me through a route that I'm not really that interested in running. And honestly, especially since I don't ever level with heirlooms on, it's kind of hard. And I think it's like a lot slower. Like I think I could absolutely level faster than this guide recommends without heirlooms, simply because telling me to do quests that are like really cumbersome, kill like elite quests that are like taking me like 4 minutes to kill like a mob, something like that. But that problem isn't going to exist in Dragonflight. Like there's not going to be heirlooms in Dragonflight. There's not going to be a bunch of different routes when Dragonflight launches. So, we only have a few days for you to contemplate buying this at this point, but maybe some people will see it afterwards. Mostly what people will be interacting with is what their route is in the adventure mode in Dragonflight, which is eventually where everything in Dragonflight scales. And then maybe eventually everything scales. And then you have heirlooms and all the buying and account power that you might eventually have by the end of the expansion. And at that point, there'd probably need to be a whole nother guide and a whole nother review on that guide. But this is the place to get it. Like, you could look at other people. There's a lot of, like I said, like YouTube videos or even text-based guides out there, but none of that really is a viable option in my eyes. I need something in-game, something that's going to help me and point me. And this arrow feature, the auto hearth feature, and the auto flight path feature are the absolute best features of this add-on, like I said, and they just don't really get used that much in the retail add-on, right? Because there's just not that many opportunities to use it. Now, I haven't actually leveled a shaman, but like something like that would be huge, right? When you're leveling a shaman, you have a 10-minute Hearthstone CD, right? So I haven't checked that guide out, but I would want to see that used well, because that is like a crucial thing. You're basically teleporting back to the quest hub every 10 minutes, provided there is a hearth there. So I would definitely want to see something like that used well. And this is what this guide has the opportunity to present. And even if the one that you pay for doesn't feature, you can edit it, or you could potentially take the info that they're telling you and then make your own guide out of it in the case of this, since we can't actually edit it. I am going to do it at launch. I'm just going to follow it. Hopefully it's going to work, because there's no way to test it. I definitely would have wanted to do at least one run through it on the beta, but I do have to say, if it doesn't come out by Sunday, it's going to be a big issue, but we will still test it out anyway. So stay tuned to the stream on Monday night, and we're going to be using it. We'll see how fast it goes. I've already leveled multiple times without any assistance, and I'm seeing 6 or 5 hours depending on things. I do think it's going to be way slower on launch. It's going to be way more people, and I'd imagine war mode is probably eventually going to have to get turned off. We'll see how it plays out. But yeah, I mean, it's really not that expensive, to be honest, either. So like, I don't know, like to me, like this amount of money is such a small amount. Ever since I started golfing, like any small amount of money that's spent on a video game is completely justifiable to me. So check it out. Maybe you're interested in it. Maybe it's useful. If you're from the future and you've used the Dragonflight guide, give some opinions on that. Otherwise, I do think this add-on is worthwhile, and just stay tuned to the channel, because at some point in this channel's lifespan, I will be making my own guide. We'll see when that happens. I don't know. I just don't know exactly how long it's going to take, but I really do want to make a horde guide, because there's this route I absolutely adore, a very nostalgic route through the Barrens, STV, and a little bit of Ashenvale, and then Southern Barrens, all this stuff. I love these zones. I love these parts of the zones, and it's always like this authentic horde feel. So I do want to make a guide through that, even if it's not that fast, just so it's autopilot. The autopilot thing is tier 1, number 1 to me. So I hope it works out in Dragonflight. I hope you guys have had your questions answered on this add-on. If you have any questions, please though, let me know. I'll read and reply to every single question in the comments section below. So thank you for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed Dragonflight. We'll be streaming it, leveling characters Monday night, and then any max level activity probably for the rest of the week. So thanks for watching. We'll see you guys there.